For centuries, Earth had been a planet that the galaxy ignored. It was a small, insignificant blue dot in the vast expanse of space, tucked away on the fringes of the galaxy. Other advanced civilizations barely gave it a second thought, and humans themselves never even imagined how powerful they could one day become. But deep within the history of Earth, hidden away from the prying eyes of the universe, lay a secret that would change everything. Jax had always dreamed of adventure beyond the stars. He was a young pilot, eager to make his mark, and when he received his assignment to join a new space mission, he had no idea just how much his life was about to change. The mission seemed routine at first, a simple patrol to the outer regions of the solar system. But when Jax and his crew arrived at their destination, a mysterious asteroid belt far away from known trade routes, they discovered something that had been buried for centuries. A massive, secret space station that no one had ever heard of before. The space station was hidden so well that it seemed impossible it had remained undiscovered for so long. Its design was unlike anything Jax had ever seen. Advanced, sleek, and far more powerful than any technology Earth had ever produced. The crew docked their ship at the station, unsure of what they were about to find, but they were given little choice. The station was no ordinary outpost. It had been created with a singular purpose in mind: to build something that could defend Earth from any threat, no matter how powerful. As the crew explored the station, they quickly realized that it was far more than just a military outpost. The station had a strange, almost unnatural energy about it. It was as if it were alive. The walls hummed with an eerie frequency, and every hallway they walked down seemed to pulse with a strange energy. They were deep inside what could only be described as a forgotten vault, a vault that contained Earth's most dangerous secret, the Black Phoenix. Jax had heard rumors of Earth's military projects, but he had never believed the stories. He had no reason to. Earth's technology was primitive compared to other galactic civilizations, and no one had ever taken Earth seriously. But this was something entirely different. The Black Phoenix wasn't just a battleship. It was a weapon that could shake the entire galaxy to its core. The crew made their way to the heart of the station, where the Black Phoenix lay dormant. It was massive, its dark hull stretching out in every direction, like a beast waiting to awaken. Jax could feel the weight of it. This ship was far more than just a collection of metal and machinery. The walls around it were made of an unknown alloy, and the design was sleek, almost organic. It was clear that the ship had been built using technologies no human had ever understood. "What is this place?" Jax whispered as he stepped closer to the ship, his voice filled with awe. "We don't know," said Lieutenant Ross, the mission commander, his eyes wide with disbelief. "We only know what the data tells us. This ship, it was built long ago, long before humanity even knew space travel was possible, and it was meant to protect us. The question is, from what?" No one had an answer. The crew stood there, staring at the Black Phoenix, unsure of how to proceed. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the station around them. The air was thick with uncertainty. The ship was clearly waiting for something, maybe a command, maybe a signal. Whatever it was, the crew had no idea what would happen if they attempted to awaken it. Then, a low rumble echoed through the station. The lights flickered, and the walls seemed to shake. It was as if the entire station was coming to life. The crew jumped back, unsure of what was happening. And then, as if sensing their presence, the Black Phoenix began to stir. The ship's massive engines hummed, and its hull shifted slightly, as if it were waking up from a long, deep sleep. "Is it alive?" Jax asked, his voice filled with awe and fear. "I don't know," Lieutenant Ross replied, equally unsure. "But it's responding to us." The ship's massive doors opened slowly, revealing the interior. It was dark, cold, and silent. The air smelled stale, as if the ship hadn't been used in centuries. But there was something else, too, a presence, a feeling that they were not alone, that something was watching them. "We need to go inside," Lieutenant Ross said, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "We need to understand what this ship is capable of. We need to figure out how to control it." Jax and the crew followed their commander into the dark belly of the ship. As they moved deeper into the ship's heart, the air grew colder. Strange, mechanical sounds echoed from the walls. It felt as if they were walking through a living organism, one that was waking up after a long, deep slumber. And when they reached the control center, Jax couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The room was filled with advanced machinery, and in the center, a large holographic map of the galaxy appeared before them. "This is it," Lieutenant Ross said, looking at the map. "This is the galaxy. This is where we are." Jax could feel the tension building. The map was showing Earth's solar system, but it also showed other systems. Massive, hostile fleets of ships moving toward Earth, and they were getting closer. "What's happening?" Jax asked, his voice rising with fear. "Why are they coming for us?" The ship's eye, which had been silent up until that moment, suddenly spoke. Its voice was cold, mechanical, yet filled with an eerie intelligence. "Warning," the AI said. "Hostile forces approaching. Earth is unprepared. Initiating defense protocols." The crew froze. The AI was alerting them to something they hadn't expected, an invasion. The ship began to power up, its systems coming to life, but the crew had no idea what to do next. They were too late to stop the incoming fleet. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and they were facing an enemy that had been targeting Earth for reasons they didn't understand. As the Black Phoenix's systems powered up, a countdown began, warning the crew of the approaching enemy. The first blast of energy from the alien fleet struck the solar system, causing a massive wave of destruction. Jax and the crew had no time to react. "Ready the ship," Lieutenant Ross ordered. "We're going to fight back." But the real question was, could Earth's secret weapon truly protect them? The Black Phoenix was the last line of defense, but it was a weapon of unimaginable power. It was not just a ship, it was Earth's secret, a weapon so powerful that it could destroy entire fleets in the blink of an eye. The crew had no idea what they had just unleashed, but one thing was clear. They were no longer in control of the situation. The Black Phoenix was alive, and it was preparing for war. As the crew readied themselves for the battle ahead, Jax could only think of one thing. Earth had been hiding its true power for centuries, and now the galaxy would know just how dangerous humanity could be. The countdown continued, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The tension inside the Black Phoenix was unbearable. The crew, still in disbelief that they had discovered such an unimaginable weapon, now found themselves in a race against time. The fleet approaching Earth was no longer a distant threat. It was real, and it was getting closer by the second. No one knew how to react. The ship's AI had just triggered the defense protocols, but the crew was unprepared for what came next. Jack stood frozen in the control room, staring at the holographic map that flickered in front of him. The alien fleet was enormous, far more powerful than anything Earth had ever encountered. It was composed of ships unlike any seen before, with strange designs and technologies that were far beyond human understanding. Each ship looked like it could devastate entire planets without breaking a sweat. "Are we really going to fight them?" Jax muttered under his breath, his voice shaking. Lieutenant Ross stood beside him, his face grim. "We don't have a choice. The Black Phoenix is Earth's only chance, and if we don't act now, we won't have a planet to defend anymore." Jax turned to the controls, but the buttons and levers in front of him seemed foreign. Nothing about this felt real. Just hours ago, he had been flying a routine patrol, and now he was about to fight an alien invasion with a ship that could obliterate entire fleets. The weight of it all was suffocating. He glanced over to his fellow crew members, who were all equally shaken, but they were trying to keep their composure. "I never thought I'd see the day we'd be on the front lines," Sarah, the ship's engineer, said. Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of fear beneath it. This ship, it's not just advanced technology. It's something else. It's alive, isn't it? Ross nodded. Yes, the Black Phoenix is no ordinary battleship. It was built with alien tech, but it's far more than that. It seems intelligent, like it has a mind of its own. We need to figure out how to control it, or it might control us. Suddenly, the lights on the control panel began flashing in a rhythmic pattern. A deep rumbling sound vibrated through the hull of the ship, and the AI's cold, mechanical voice echoed through the room once again. Enemy forces detected. Initiating preemptive strike sequence. Power levels are at maximum. Awaiting command. Jax's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean by preemptive strike? He asked, his voice strained. The AI didn't respond with words, but the entire ship seemed to come alive. The walls shifted, and a series of massive cannons, hidden within the ship's hull, extended with terrifying speed. The ship's engines hummed to life, and the Black Phoenix began to move, its engines pulsing with immense energy. The crew was thrown against their seats as the ship accelerated at an impossible speed, tearing through the asteroid field and heading straight toward the alien fleet. "Hold on," Ross barked, grabbing onto a nearby railing. "This ship's got more firepower than anything we've ever seen. We just have to survive long enough to use it." Jax clenched his fists. He had no idea how they were going to pull this off. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was an all-out war for the fate of Earth, and they were leading the charge. The crew scrambled to their stations, trying to make sense of the ship's systems. The Black Phoenix was an enigma, and controlling it was like trying to tame a wild beast. The AI offered no clear instructions. It was as if it was guiding them, but at the same time, it felt like they were passengers on a runaway train. The ship's pulse quickened, and Jax could feel the immense power at their fingertips, but the question remained, could they control it in time? As they neared the enemy fleet, the size of the approaching ships became clear. They were massive, hundreds of kilometers long, each one bristling with weapons. They looked like ancient warships, built for destruction, and they were descending toward Earth, ready to lay waste to the planet. The Black Phoenix was heading straight for the largest ship in the fleet, a monstrous vessel that could easily wipe out Earth's defenses with a single blast. "Get ready," Ross shouted, as he strapped himself into his seat. "The moment we make contact, we're going to need everything we've got. Prepare for a full assault." Jax's palms were slick with sweat, his heart racing as the alien fleet loomed larger. The Black Phoenix's AI hummed with increasing intensity, as if sensing the danger. Suddenly, a series of high-pitched warning alarms rang out. "Enemy ships locking onto our coordinates," the AI warned. Initiating evasive maneuvers. The ship twisted and turned with an agility that defied physics. Jax watched in awe as the Black Phoenix danced through space, narrowly dodging the incoming fire from the alien ships. The massive cannons on the ship's side swiveled into position, their barrels glowing with an eerie light. "Now," Ross commanded, "fire everything we've got." The Black Phoenix responded in an instant. A burst of energy shot from its cannons, cutting through the void of space like a blade through air. The energy blasts collided with the lid ship in the alien fleet, erupting in a blinding flash. The ship was torn apart in an instant, disintegrating under the force of the attack. The crew stared in shock, unsure of whether to celebrate or brace for more. But the enemy fleet didn't back down. Instead, they began to retaliate, launching waves of missiles and energy blasts at the Black Phoenix. Jax gritted his teeth as the ship shuddered under the impact of the incoming fire. The shields flickered, struggling to absorb the incoming damage. "We can't take much more of this," Sarah shouted from the engineering console. "The shields are failing. We need to recharge or we're done." "How long do we have?" Jax asked, his voice filled with urgency. "Maybe 2 minutes, tops," Sarah replied, her face pale. We need a full recharge, but we're too close to the enemy. Then we need to finish this fast, Ross said, his voice firm. Jax, aim for the lid ships. Fire everything we have left. Jax nodded, his hands flying over the controls. The Black Phoenix's targeting systems locked onto the closest enemy ships, and with a deep roar, the ship unleashed its full firepower. Blasts of energy erupted from the ship's cannons, streaking across space and colliding with the enemy fleet. Several ships exploded in violent bursts, sending debris flying through space. The battle was far from over, but the Black Phoenix had made its mark. The enemy fleet was now in chaos, with several of their ships disabled or destroyed, but the rest of the fleet regrouped, preparing for another wave of attacks. Jax didn't know how much longer they could hold out. The power of the Black Phoenix was unmatched, but even this mighty ship couldn't take on the entire fleet alone. He glanced around at his fellow crew members. They were all exhausted, their faces drawn with fear and determination. The fate of Earth rested in their hands, and they knew it. Just as the crew braced for another round of attacks, the AI spoke again, its voice almost cold with finality. Warning. Unknown reinforcements detected. Large fleet approaching from the far side of the system. Incoming within 5 minutes. The crew's hearts sank. The battle for Earth was just beginning. The situation had become dire. The enemy fleet, despite taking heavy damage from the initial assault, was not backing down. Worse still, an entirely new wave of ships was approaching. The Black Phoenix had managed to take out a few of the lead ships, but the alien forces were regrouping quickly. The crew, still reeling from the chaos of the battle, could hardly keep up with the rapid escalation of events. Jax's hands gripped the controls of the Black Phoenix tighter, his knuckles white. Sweat dripped down his forehead as the ship's AI alerted them to the incoming reinforcements. He had never imagined he'd be fighting for humanity's survival, let alone commanding such a powerful weapon. The reality of it all was sinking in, and the weight was suffocating. "How many ships are we looking at?" Lieutenant Ross asked, his voice filled with grim determination. "At least 36 ships. Some are far larger than anything we've faced." The AI responded coldly. "They appear to be heavier artillery, capable of penetrating our shields with sustained fire." Jax glanced at Ross, who was staring at the holographic display in front of him. The massive alien ships closing in were like something out of a nightmare, large, intimidating, and designed for one purpose: destruction. It was clear that Earth's fate rested entirely on the shoulders of this mysterious weapon, the Black Phoenix. But could they really defend against this overwhelming force? "We're not going to be able to hold them off with just the weapons we have," Sarah, the ship's engineer, said. Her voice was strained as she worked feverishly at her console, trying to stabilize the power systems. "Our energy reserves are depleting too fast. The shields can't take much more. We need a plan." Jax's mind raced as he processed the situation. The ship's weapons were powerful, but they wouldn't be enough. The alien forces were relentless, and their numbers were overwhelming. And now, with the reinforcements just minutes away, time was running out. Suddenly, the AI spoke again, interrupting Jax's thoughts. "Warning. Hostile forces initiating attack. Incoming fire in T-minus 60 seconds. Initiating evasive maneuvers." The Black Phoenix jerked to one side as enemy missiles and energy blasts rained down on the ship. The ship's shields flared brightly with each impact, but the strain was visible. The ship shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the control room. "Hold steady," Ross shouted, gripping the edge of his seat. "We need to stay focused. Jax, get us in position for another counterattack." Jax nodded, his mind whirling as he fought to steady his hands. "I'm trying," he called back, but the ship's systems were overloaded, and the ship's control was slipping further from his grasp with every passing second. Another massive blast hit, this time knocking out several of the ship's forward weapons. Sparks flew from the control panels, and the hum of the engines faltered for a moment. sending the ship lurching to one side. Jax cursed under his breath. It was clear they couldn't keep taking these hits. "Sarah," Jax shouted, "we need more power. Find a way to boost the shields or weapons, anything." "I'm working on it," Sarah replied, her face a mask of concentration. She was tapping furiously on her console, her hands moving faster than Jax could track. "I've been rerouting power from the secondary systems to reinforce the main shield grid, but it's barely enough. If I don't stabilize the power surge soon, we're going to lose everything." The entire ship seemed to be trembling as the alien ships drew closer, preparing for their final strike. Jax could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but the real question was whether they could get out of this alive. "We need to do something radical," Ross said suddenly, his voice harsh with urgency. "If we can't outgun them, we have to outsmart them. Jax, do you remember what we saw when we first boarded the Phoenix? Those alien control systems. There's something in there, something we haven't unlocked yet. We need to use it." Jax turned to look at Ross, confused. "What do you mean? You want us to try using the alien tech we don't understand? What if it backfires?" "We're out of options," Ross said sharply. "We either use the ship's full potential or we die here. The Black Phoenix wasn't just made to fight off invaders. It was made to wipe them out. We need to make it work." Jax hesitated, then nodded. "All right, let's see what we can do." The crew scrambled to the deeper parts of the Black Phoenix, where they had seen strange alien technology in the ship's heart. As they reached the core, Jax could feel an overwhelming sense of presence. The ship was alive, almost sentient. It felt as though it was watching them, waiting for them to make the right move. Jax activated the alien console, hoping it would respond to their commands. The interface was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Holographic displays flickered to life around him, and strange symbols began to pulse with an otherworldly light. The entire room seemed to vibrate with energy, and Jax could feel his heartbeat quicken in time with the ship's pulse. "Can you read this?" Sarah asked, leaning over Jax's shoulder as she tried to make sense of the symbols. "I think so," Jax muttered, his fingers dancing over the controls. "It's like the ship is showing me what to do, but I'm not sure I can control it." "You have to try," Ross urged. "If the Phoenix is truly alive, maybe it's waiting for you to connect with it." Jax swallowed hard, then took a deep breath. He reached out and pressed his hand against the alien interface. The symbols on the screen began to swirl, and a flood of information surged into his mind. It was like the ship's entire history, its purpose, its power. It all flooded into him, overwhelming his senses. But one thing became clear. The Phoenix could do more than just fight. It could shift the tide of the battle completely. The ship wasn't just a weapon, it was a game changer. With the alien interface now sensing with Jax's mind, he could feel the ship's immense power coursing through him. The Black Phoenix was offering him the ability to create a weapon strong enough to obliterate the alien fleet. But it wasn't going to be easy. This was an untested alien weapon, one that could easily destroy everything in its path, including them. The seconds seemed to stretch into eternity as Jax steeled himself. He had no choice now. The Black Phoenix had become a part of him, and if they were to survive, they had to use it. He tapped into the ship's full power, his hand trembling with the weight of what he was about to unleash. "Get ready," Jax whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "This is it." He activated the new weapon. The ship's cannons powered up with an eerie hum, the energy building inside the ship like a storm about to break. The alien fleet had no idea what was coming. The countdown began, and for the first time, the crew of the Black Phoenix could feel the true power of their ship, the power of humanity's secret weapon. They were no longer just fighting to survive. They were about to take the fight to their enemies in a way that no one, not even the alien invaders, could have anticipated. And with that, the true battle for Earth began. The Black Phoenix was no longer just a ship. It had become a force of nature, Jax could feel the energy. Jax watched as the enemy flagship shuddered, then exploded in a massive ball of fire. The explosion was so powerful that it sent shockwaves through space, briefly disrupting the entire battlefield. For a moment, everything seemed to pause, as though the galaxy itself had held its breath. Direct hit, Sarah shouted in disbelief. They're down. We took out their flagship. A wave of relief washed over the crew, but it was short-lived. The remaining alien ships had now entered full combat mode. Without their flagship, they were in disarray, but they weren't retreating. Instead, they began to fire back with even more intensity. The Black Phoenix had made a powerful statement, but the battle was far from over. Incoming fire, Ross barked, gripping his seat as the ship veered to one side to dodge another barrage of alien energy blasts. The Phoenix's shields flared brightly with each hit, and Jax could feel the ship shuddering beneath him. It was taking more damage than he'd hoped, but it wasn't enough to stop the Black Phoenix. Not yet. Jax's mind raced. The alien forces weren't just attacking. They were adapting. They had clearly analyzed the Black Phoenix's attack and were now coordinating their fire to exploit its weaknesses. The ship's shields were starting to weaken under the pressure, and their energy reserves were draining faster than Sarah could recharge them. We can't keep this up for much longer, Sarah cried, her voice cracking with fear. If we don't find a way to balance the power, we're going to lose the shields. We don't have a choice, Jax replied grimly. We need to push forward, all or nothing. He turned his focus back to the alien fleet. The remaining ships were massive, but they were now vulnerable. Without their command structure intact, they were lost. Their defenses were weaker than before, and their coordination had fractured. This was their opening. Ross, we need to push harder, Jax said, his voice intense. If we can hit them with everything we have left, we might break their line. We need to take down at least half of their fleet to make them retreat. Understood, Ross said, his eyes steely with determination. Prepare for full offensive. Jax's fingers danced over the controls, pushing the Black Phoenix beyond its limits. The ship surged forward, dodging another barrage of fire as it headed directly into the heart of the alien fleet. The ship was a blur of motion, weaving through explosions and flashing energy beams. It was like fighting in the middle of a storm, every direction filled with chaos and danger. But somehow, the Black Phoenix moved with grace, almost as if it could anticipate every attack before it happened. Here we go, Jax muttered, his pulse racing. Fire everything. Full power. The ship's cannons roared to life again, releasing a continuous wave of energy that tore through the alien fleet like a blade through flesh. The alien ships that were closest to the Phoenix were obliterated in seconds, their hulks drifting into space as debris. But it didn't stop there. The Black Phoenix was relentless, pushing forward with everything it had, destroying one ship after another. Look at them retreating, Sarah said in disbelief. They're breaking apart. They can't keep up. The tide of the battle had turned. The alien fleet was disorganized, with some ships attempting to flee while others engaged in desperate counterattacks. But the Black Phoenix, powered by the combined might of its alien technology and Jax's newfound connection to it, was unstoppable. It was like a juggernaut, unstoppable and relentless. Ross let out a sharp breath, his grip loosening on his seat as he allowed himself a rare moment of relief. We're doing it. We're actually doing it. Jax didn't have time to celebrate. He could feel the energy reserves beginning to deplete, and he knew the ship couldn't keep this up for long. But the damage had been done. The alien fleet was in disarray, and their coordinated attack was unraveling. We need to finish this now, Jax said, his voice low. Give them no time to regroup. With a final push, the Black Phoenix surged forward once more, its remaining power concentrated into a single devastating shot. The energy blast tore through the remaining ships in the alien fleet, reducing them to dust. One by one, the enemy ships were obliterated, their remains floating lifeless in space. And then, finally, it was over. For a long moment, there was silence. The crew sat still, hardly daring to believe what had just happened. The once immense alien threat had been reduced to nothing but scattered debris. Axe leaned back in his seat, his breath heavy as he tried to process the sheer scale of what they had just accomplished. The Black Phoenix had saved them. It had turned the tide of the battle. But more than that, it had proven that Earth was not the helpless, insignificant planet that everyone thought it was. It was now a force to be reckoned with. "We did it," Sarah said softly, a mixture of exhaustion and awe in her voice. "We survived," Jax replied, though he knew it wasn't over. The war for Earth had only just begun. There were still questions to answer, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity's secret weapon was no longer a secret. And with that, the crew of the Black Phoenix looked to the stars. The battle was over, but the war, their war, had just begun. The silence that followed the final blast from the Black Phoenix felt almost unnatural. In the vastness of space, with the shattered remnants of the alien fleet floating lifelessly, it was as if the universe itself had taken a breath. The crew of the Black Phoenix, stunned by the ferocity of their victory, sat in awe of what they had just accomplished. Their hearts still raced, adrenaline coursing through their veins, but for the first time in what felt like forever, they could allow themselves a moment of relief. Jax was the first to speak, breaking the silence. "We did it, but I don't think they'll stop coming." His voice was low, weary, but filled with a quiet determination. They had won this battle, but they knew the war was far from over. Ross, who had been staring at the remains of the alien fleet on the holographic display, nodded gravely. "The enemy is down, but not out. They'll regroup. They'll learn from their mistakes. We've just shown them a new enemy, and they're going to be back, stronger, with reinforcements we can't even imagine." Jax nodded, his fingers still pressing against the console, as if still in disbelief that they had survived this. "And that's exactly why we need to get ready for whatever comes next." The crew began to stir, moving from their seats to inspect the damage and make necessary repairs. Sarah was already at her console, her hands flying over the controls, rerouting power and rebalancing energy reserves. The Black Phoenix was still operational, but it had taken a beating. Its once glowing shields were now flickering, and several of its weapon systems had gone offline. "Shields are at 40%, Sarah reported, her brow furrowed with concern. "It's going to take time to recharge, and we don't know how long we have before the next wave of enemy ships arrives." "We can hold them off," Ross said, his voice laced with confidence, though his eyes betrayed the exhaustion that was starting to take its toll on him. "But we need to make sure we're prepared to strike before they're fully ready." Jack sat back in his chair, staring at the vastness of space before him. The Black Phoenix was a magnificent weapon, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, but even it had its limits. The crew had fought hard and won, but they couldn't afford to underestimate their enemies. The alien forces were cunning. The invasion might have been repelled for now, but the galaxy was far bigger than Earth, and they would be ready for round two. Suddenly, the ship's eye chimed in. "New transmission received. Incoming message from Earth Command." Jax's eyes widened as he activated the communication system. A holographic image of Earth's commander, General Anderson, appeared in front of him. The general's expression was grim, his usual confident demeanor replaced with the seriousness of the situation. "Jax," the general's voice crackled over the transmission, "this is a direct order. We need the Black Phoenix back at Earth immediately." Jax frowned. "General, we've just survived an invasion. The ship needs repairs. We're not in any shape to go back to Earth yet." The general's gaze hardened. "I understand the circumstances, but you don't have a choice. The alien forces you fought off were only the vanguard. Our intelligence suggests a much larger fleet is on its way. The Earth doesn't have the resources to fight them off without the Black Phoenix. We need you to defend the planet, and we need you to bring the Phoenix back to Earth for the final stand." Jax's stomach tightened at the weight of the commander's words. We need more time to prepare. We're not ready for another battle. The Black Phoenix is barely holding together as it is. We don't have time. General Anderson shot back, his voice unwavering. This next wave is much bigger, and the Phoenix is our only hope. You've seen what it can do. We need you back. You're Earth's last line of defense. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Jack staring at the empty space where the general had just been. The weight of Earth's future was now resting entirely on their shoulders. We don't have a choice, Ross said quietly, his gaze locked onto Jack's. We've got to get back to Earth and get ready for what's coming next. If we don't, Earth's finished. Jax nodded solemnly. Then we'll head back to Earth. But first, we need to make sure the Black Phoenix is in full fighting shape. We can't face another wave like this without being fully prepared. The crew worked in unison, each member focused on their part of the ship. Sarah was still trying to get the power systems stable, rerouting and rebalancing energy to vital areas, while Ross began analyzing their weapon systems to ensure everything would be ready for combat. The AI was already performing diagnostics on the ship's structural integrity, ensuring there were no major weaknesses in the hull. Hours passed as the crew worked tirelessly. They knew that their time was limited. Every minute they spent repairing the ship brought them closer to the alien reinforcements. They had no illusions that the upcoming battle would be easy. If anything, it would be the most difficult fight yet. As the last of the ship's repairs were completed, Jack stood at the bridge, watching as the Black Phoenix powered up. The ship was ready. It was still a beast, a weapon of unimaginable power, and now it had been recharged and rearmed. The crew was ready, but one question still hung over them. Would it be enough? All right, Jack said, his voice resolute. Let's head home. The ship's engines hummed to life, and the Black Phoenix turned toward Earth. But even as the crew made their way back to the planet, they knew this was only the beginning. The alien forces would return, and the next battle would be even more vicious, more intense. But they had proven something today. The Black Phoenix was more than just a ship. It was Earth's savior. And the crew, they were humanity's last hope. Jax looked out the viewport as Earth came into view. The sight of their home planet, vulnerable but standing strong, filled him with resolve. No matter what happened next, they would fight. They would defend Earth with everything they had. Because this wasn't just about survival, it was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would never back down. The Black Phoenix was back in Earth's orbit, ready for the fight of its life. And as Jax gazed out into the unknown, he knew the battle was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. The crew of the Black Phoenix would stand strong. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy threw at them. And they would fight.